Looking at trigonometry, and so far we have been able to label sides, we've been able to work out whether we need sine, cos or tan, and then we can substitute values in and solve the equation. So far we've looked at when we solve equations that have the unknown in the numerator or the unknown in the denominator. So today we're going to look at three different types, and these are the three different types of questions that we can get in trigonometry. If you can do these three different types, you can do any questions that we come across in trigonometry. We're going to be following this process each time. So 5 steps. Our first step is to label the sides, work out whether we need sine, cos or tan, write the equation, put in the values, and then solve the equation. So, for this first one, I'm going to label my side. So, Tom, if I'm talking about this angle, what do I call this side?
Opposite.
Fantastic. Opposite. It's opposite this angle. And Ryan, what do I call side label 7? The hypotenuse, the long side. Fantastic. Then I say, I've got O and H. I only have to label the two sides that I've got. So think about sine, cos or tan, and it is sine. So that's our second step, identify the ratio. Third step is to write down the equation. So I'm going to say sine theta equals O over H. And as we've talked about, that would be 1 mark, just doing that. Labelling the sides, picking out which ratio you need. Step number 4, I'm going to substitute my values in. So instead of theta, I'm going to put my angle. So this is going to be sine 50 degrees equals, instead of O, I'm going to put X. Instead of H, I'm going to put 7. So step number 4. Step number 5 is just solving this equation. So now we can either do that using our algebra skills. So I can say, okay, to get the x by itself, x is being divided by 7. I do the opposite of that, so I'm going to times that by 7, times this side by 7, and then I would get x is equal to 7 times sine 50 degrees. Or you can remember, if the thing that you're trying to find is in the numerator, we end up multiplying the trig function. So I'll end up with 7 times sine 50. So then I put that into my calculator, 7 times sine 50 degrees, and I get 5.36. Down 5.36. If this was in metres, for example, this would be in metres. If I don't show any units on the question, I don't have to show any units in the answer. But if there's units shown in our question, we've got to match that up. Okay, so that's the first type of question we get. It's when the unknown's in the numerator. We do a similar thing for the next question, except as you'll see, we'll get a different type of question. So Mitch, our first step is to label our sides. What will I call this side that's labelled 15?
I really don't know.
So we've got to think, is this the opposite side, the adjacent side, or the hypotenuse? Alright, so we'll grab someone else. So Jasmine. So this side 15, what would I call that? Opposite. So Mitch, I look at this angle, and this side is opposite that angle. So I label it as my opposite side, and the longest side in the triangle is called what? In the right angle triangle is called what? Hypotenuse. So this is my longest side, so that's going to be the hypotenuse. I haven't done this very well because I wanted to mix this up, but I've got O and H again. So I think about Sokotoa, O and H is here, so I'm going to use sine. So I'm going to say sine theta equals O over H. Now, James, I've got to substitute in my values. So what am I going to put instead of theta? Remember, theta is the angle.
70.
Yeah, so we're going to go sine 70 degrees equals. Josh, what's I'm going to put instead of O?
Y. IX.
Sorry, so which side is, this is my opposite side, so what number goes in? 15, so this is going to be 15 divided by y. Now, here the thing that we're trying to find is in the denominator. So, some algebra around that. It's difficult for me to solve that if the unknown's in the denominator. So my first step here is to times both sides by y. And when I do that, this y is going to cancel with this y. So I'm going to be left with y times sine 70 degrees is equal to 15. Now I'm trying to get the y by itself, and y is now not in the denominator, it's in the top line. So here, what I can do here is divide by sine 70 degrees. And I need to do it on both sides. Divide by sine 70. When I do that, this sign is going to cancel with this sign. So I'll be left with y equals 15 divided by sine 70 degrees. So you might want to do it using your algebra skills, or if you struggle with that, if the thing that we're trying to find is in the denominator, we end up dividing by sine, cos or tan. Okay, that's the other way we can remember it. So I put this into my calculator, 15 divided by sine 70 degrees, and I get 15.96. And if I have a look at that, that makes sense to me because the hypotenuse is the longer side in the triangle, so it's got to be greater than 15. If you got an answer to the hypotenuse which was smaller than one of the other sides, you've done something wrong. So this looks okay, and I'm happy with that answer. That's the second type of question that we get, when the unknown ends up in the denominator. The third type we get is when we've got to solve for an angle. So here we know two sides and we don't know the angle. So labelling this, Molly, what do I call this side 8? That's the opposite. What do I call the side 7? Adjacent. Serena, if I've got the opposite and the adjacent, do I need sine or cos or tan? Tan, fantastic. So tan theta equals O over A. I substitute my values in. So Reese, what will this become? So I don't know theta, so that stays as theta, so I'll go still tan theta equals
8 over 7.
8 over 7, fantastic. Now, whenever we're solving for an angle, what I need to do is get this theta by itself. The way that we do that is say that theta is equal to, in this case, it's going to be inverse tan, which is tan to the minus 1 of bracket 8 on 7. And we can get this on our calculator, either by doing shift tan or alt tan, depends on your calculator. So, on mine, I'm going to go whoops. Sorry, let's try that again. Inverse tan of 8 divided by 7. The 8 divided by 7 I'm probably best putting inside brackets so that the calculator knows that I'm doing the inverse tan of that ratio. And when I do that, I get 48.8, and that will be 48.8 degrees. And that's my answer. So whenever we're finding an angle, we've got to either use inverse sine, inverse cos, or inverse tan. And it just depends on which of those ratios we're using. And they're the three different types of questions. So we'll go on and do some practice on those. We're going to do a test on this probably early next week.